Hey, 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 this is Dredd from Miss Valley Gaming, also called Miss Valley Arts and Entertainment. Welcome to Sports Talk with Dredd. Today's topic is going to be the Pittsburgh Penguins, one of my very favorite NHL teams. Back to the days of Mario Lemieux. And it's kind of a sad article to cover, but it's necessary. So we're going to jump right into this. This is off of PittsburghHockeyNow.com. I will link the original article in the description down below. Please go check it out after you watch this. This article is by Dan Kingersky. Dan, I don't know how to say your last name apparently. But Dan has put out an article called How to Replace Crosby and Malkin, Two Major Problems and One Big Question. So let's go through this article because he has a lot of really good things to say. And I will definitely talk about them as we go through, but really, it's a good article. After Pittsburgh Penguins GM Ron Hextall joked with the media that he would not replace Sidney Crosby just because of his wrist surgery, which keep him away from the Penguins for at least 6 weeks, an unsettling reality faced Hextall and the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's not just that Crosby is the Penguins' best player, one of the best in the league, and the Penguins lineup will be without him. It's not just that the Penguins are also without Evgeny Malkin, who is recovering from knee surgery. Nor is it that PTO Brian Boyle was almost guaranteed at least a short-term spot with the News. It's the totality of the situation, all little things that could be bad news. So, on the one hand, not a big deal. Crosby misses a handful of games. He comes back the first few weeks. Malkin comes back, all is well. The problem, this keeps happening again and again, and worse and worse. Crosby's second surgery on that wrist in 1 year. Crosby had surgery on the same wrist the doctors repaired last summer. He tried all options to avoid surgery this summer. Who would have guessed he played through a nagging wrist injury, scoring 62 points in just 54 games? The first surgery didn't fix it. Now, needing a second surgery is a key worry. So, Pittsburgh Penguins, big question. 2 wrist surgeries in 12 or 14 months is not an ideal situation. And there we're getting into the crunch of it. The crunch of this article is these injuries to important players as they get older becomes kind of scary. So Evgeny Malkin has missed 14 or more games in the last 2 seasons, and serious knee surgery followed by rehab at 35 years old is no small thing. That is true. Times are changing. Athletes are better prepared. Doctors are better prepared. Trainers are better prepared to help out in these things. But, man, it is still a crapshoot on this. So, are we watching the Penguins break down a couple of years before we expected? A nagging wrist injury for Crosby. A myriad of injuries, and now including serious knee surgery for Malkin. I don't know the answer. Now we have medical proof the top player has a chronic injury, and the other one can't stay healthy. It changes the flavor of this season and the next offseason when both Malkin and core defenseman Chris Letang need new contracts. It suddenly seems like the question is not if the Penguins should ride or die with Crosby, Malkin, and Letang, but how can the Penguins plausibly do so? Unless the Penguins are wanting to go continually downward until we eventually hit rock bottom. I don't know. Let's read the rest of the article here. Penguins' 2 problems, getting worse and a lack of defense. The other problem Crosby injury exposes is an absolute lack of center depth in the organization. That is completely true. It's going to be an opportunity for players like Evan Rodriguez and Radim Zorhona, Michael Chaput, Dominic Simon. We brought in Brian Boyle to camp here, Hextall said. Yeah, you're forgiven if you're not dancing in the streets at this. Rodriguez is a gritty addition on the wings, but playing a third-line center role is a big ask for the player who has not yet established an every-night role with the Penguins or established himself in the NHL at all. Penguins' top forward prospects, Sam Poulin and Nathan Laguerre, are wingers, so there's no help there. So Horna had fans' tugs wagging, but that was perhaps based on expectations. His 6'7" frame was a heavy presence. It certainly isn't. He's still learning to play between the dots, not outside of them like he did in his native Czech Republic. He has silky hands, but insiders confided that the organization was pushing him to play a harder game, and it was, shall we say, a process. The Kraken expansion draft really hurt. Penguins gave away their genuine center to death by trading Jared McCann for a prospect, Philippe Islander, to avoid losing him for nothing, and then spent the savings of losing Brandon Tanev via the draft on a Tanev replacement, Brock McGinn. Perhaps you read our chat with Stu Grimson about having toughness in the lineup, what toughness holds other teams accountable, and how a lack of it often means teams have to put up with more guff from opponents. Don't hate the player for telling it like it is. Does anyone want to deny that Crosby's wrist will have a bullseye and every Metro Division checking's center stick will target it? And that is a big problem with the NHL. That kind of crap is allowed. When you know a player's got an injury and you try to whack him or hack him on that injury, that should be just what it is. Illegal. Penalize it every time. It's not even sportsmanship. But no, that kind of stuff's allowed. Thought teams were hard on the Penguins before. Oh boy. Penguins will have to adjust their style as long as Crosby and Malkin are out. More defensive system. Last year, they proved they could do that. That was last year. The Penguins' defensive core was surprisingly one of the best in the league last year. Even if both had mediocre years by their own standards, the third pairing with John Marino and Marcus Pettersson was still good enough for a third pairing. Cody Ceci and Mike Matheson were easily the most surprisingly effective pairing in the NHL. Two players changed the chatter and career trajectories together. Obviously, when you have the number of points in the lineup that we're going to have with Gino and Sid, you need to tighten things up, said Hextall. Obviously, our defense and goaltending, we got to be tight. Also up front, we need the guys to step up offensively and do a good job for us. Defense core has a giant hole in the wall. They're short, one established right side defenseman. Ceci was off to Edmonton on a fancy new 4-year deal, leaving the Penguins with Chad Ruhwedel and Mark Friedman. We've seen it before. The Penguins almost exclusively excel when injuries decimate them, and they plug their holes with, no pun intended, pluggers. But everything seems different now. Superstars banged up before the season begins. Age banging on the door with increasing ferocity. Depleted depth. Only 5 regular NHL defensemen when the team needs to play a tight defensive game. And a goalie who was rattled by his first playoff series. We could be watching that season when everything changes. I don't know the answer, I really don't, but I learned long ago not to count out Mike Sullivan teams in a tight spot. But I do know it feels different this time. There are big questions to answer and problems beyond Crosby and Malcolm's absence to overcome. Training camp starts soon. So, Dan Kingerski, Dan K has hit on this right on the nose. And as much, no, let's put it this way. The Pittsburgh Penguins organization very much tried to hang on to just hope for another run. That's what they did under their last GM, and they sacrificed all their future for it. Constantly, over and over, just trying to hit a home run trade, trying to get the spark that would put them over the top and bring them into a Stanley Cup contention. Didn't work out, and they were left decimated. The draft pick's gone. Nobody much in the system. And some overpriced contracts. I do believe Brian Burke and Ron Hextall were brought in to do the 180 on that. Very carefully. And very careful of the words they use, the comments they make, what they say in the media. Very careful what they tell the fans. You're not going to say we're pulling the plug. And they're not. There's still always a chance. Your team gets in the playoffs, always a chance. Always. And when you've got a Crosby, for instance, always a chance. But I think it's a very good chance that if Malkin is back and playing okay, that they trade over the deadline. Or let him walk in the summer. That's another option. I think they then take that money they've saved next summer, and I think they might put in an offer sheet on someone who's under 30, maybe in the 28 to 30 range. A center who can have some skill for this team. If they can find one, they will put an offer sheet on one and try to get one. Maybe even one younger than that if they can. Someone who can be a second line center for this team and kind of be the guy when Crosby moves on years down the road. So they'll still have a push if they can make the playoffs, which hopefully they do. They still can push and can compete for a Stanley Cup. But they're not relying on Malkin to be their second line center with his age and injury history. They might move on from a Letang as well if they can bring in another young offensive defenseman. They're for sure going to want to try to, I believe, free up enough money to bring in an experienced goaltender for a year or two. All that stuff's coming down the road probably next summer. It's going to be a different Pittsburgh team, and it's going to be a different Pittsburgh organization going forward. And it kind of has to be. And it's sad. And it's sad because it means counting on the Penguins to be a Stanley Cup contender. Those days are kind of gone. Now it's going to be a little bit more of a surprise if they end up being one, at least for the next few years. But that's how I feel about that, and that's how Dan Kay here has written about it, and I pretty much agree with everything he says. So, you guys, fans of the Pittsburgh Penguins, what do you think about the situation? What do you think about the article? What do you think might be coming for the organization in the next coming year or so? Are you concerned about the injuries? Are you concerned about the age? Are you concerned about the albatross contracts? Are you concerned about the lack of draft picks? Concerned about what the last set of management did to this team? How you feeling about things, people? Let me know. I'd love to have a conversation about it. So, yeah. Dredd from Mist Valley Gaming, also called Mist Valley Arts and Entertainment. We don't just do gaming, we do sports as well. We do music. We have conversations about the arts and all the things that we're passionate about. Safe place for people where everybody treats each other with respect and gets along and we're all good. So, yeah. This has been Sports Talk with Dredd. This has been my talk on what's coming for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Thank you guys so much for listening. Peace out.